Walcott, who can run away from them. Blind trying to buy him a bit of time. Ozil, 2!
This is Barkley, away from Otamendi. He's got two runners to his left and one to his right. Barkley wants to go alone, and why not?
Manchester City are still alive here. Balotelli, Aguero!
Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters English Breakfast podcast. I am your host Kris, as I am very often, and just myself and my co-host Ross this evening, just the two of us, because we've got lots to talk about and a very short space of time to do it in. So good evening to you, Ross.
Good evening, and what a glorious evening it is too.
It's great, isn't it? We're both very happy this evening. It's quite fun, isn't it? And rumour has it, although I can't confirm it, even Arsenal fans are getting on tonight. That's how much of a happy day it's been. So more on that to come. Right, we're here, obviously, to discuss the final day of the Premier League season. And there should be just enough time for you to give us a little update on how the playoffs are progressing in the Football League as well. So you've got plenty to discuss. We are going to start, though, with the midweek action because everyone knows, of course, what happened in midweek, or I'm sure they do, but we would be remiss not to mention them. So, shall we just quickly run through the midweek games in the Premier League, because it's quite a pivotal area at the bottom. Chelsea and Liverpool drew 1-1. No one really cares about that. But we had Norwich playing Watford, and we had Sunderland playing Everton, and of course the end of the era at West Ham, Manchester United winning. West Ham winning 3 goals to 2 over Manchester United. But let's talk about those relegation games. Sunderland are safe. They beat Everton by 3 goals to 0. Norwich won 4-2. It was academic. What's your views on the fact that we know officially Newcastle and Norwich have gone and Sunderland are staying up?
Ooh. Well, I think Norwich are the ones that deserved it. Because there's too many Championship teams that come up and decide they're just going to stick with it and don't add enough talent. And Norwich, unfortunately, fell straight into that trap of just thinking that the team spirit would be enough, and unfortunately it just wasn't. So I think Norwich are probably the only other ones, aside from Aston Villa, that really deserve to go down. Newcastle is just, as a fan of the Championship, it's just the most incredible team to have come down. Out of all the teams that were involved in the relegation fight, either from the past 2 weeks or the past season, all the ones that you thought might be involved, it's absolutely incredible to think that Newcastle are coming back to the Championship after about 7 seasons away from it. To think now that there's a very good chance now that Rafa Benitez could be staying on. That is blockbuster for the Championship. And if he's going to be staying, then some of those players are going to be staying, and Newcastle are suddenly the biggest team that has ever been in the Championship if it stays together. So for me, I'm absolutely buzzing that Newcastle went down. For Newcastle fans, obviously it's a completely different story, but from what I saw on Twitter, the reaction was a bit more mooted than it was the last time they went down. It was kind of a bit of a numb feeling for Newcastle fans this time around, because it's almost like it had been coming for the past 2 or 3 seasons now.
As you say, it almost felt like that inevitability, and it certainly did with Norwich, who all of a sudden decided to score some goals against Watford when it didn't matter. So, yes, Newcastle goal. We will, of course, touch in a bit more detail on the teams that have gone down and stayed up after today's games. But briefly, a word on West Ham's grand finale. Rumour has it they had their final game in their stadium this week. I don't know if anyone mentioned it, but our friend and listener Mark will be chuckling away to himself. But the end of Upton Park, or the Bowling Ground, or whatever you want to call it. Taxis on the pitch, legends coming and going, and a totally crazy game. Anything you want to sort of say about West Ham's grand finale, and any memories at all of Saints games at Upton Park?
Yeah, you've got the Starlight Express show at the end of the game.
Oh, fascinating.
It's. I mean, as a fan that's seen their stadium go when we destroyed the Dell, I get it. It's a sad thing, but as a neutral that has never really been that fussed with West Ham, I've never compared the Berlin Ground, Upton Park, whatever you want to call it, to any particular major stadium in the world. So for me, looking in, it was a bit over the top, a bit grand, and a bit strange, frankly, to watch it all. But it's not for me. It's for West Ham fans, and I'm sure they enjoyed the day. The memory of beating Man United in your final game at your old ground is going to be fantastic for them. So more power to them. I think it should also be said that it was completely marred by the bus incident before the game. The Man United fans, the West Ham fans bricking the Man United team bus. It was strange event, strange day. I don't think anyone on the West Ham side really came out of it covered in glory to the neutrals. But West Ham fans won't care. They'll just be enjoying the day. As for memorable games that Southampton have had there, the only one I can think of off the top of my head was last season with Ronald Koeman, where they went West Ham went 1-0 up and we came back to win it 3-1, 4-1. And the reason that stands out so much is because under Mauricio Pochettino, we had never won a game when the opposing side had taken the lead. So to see Ronald Koeman do it against a very good West Ham team away at Upton Park was a very big result and a big moment for us in the season. So that's the only standout memory I've got from Upton Park. But again, the whole ceremony, the celebrations wasn't really for me. It was for West Ham fans, so I'm sure they enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one in the eye for you, Poch. Wahaha. I did go to Upton Park many times, and my one particular memory was my very first away day as an Arsenal fan without the supervision of an adult. So my first ever away day as a grown-up, if you can call it that. I was 13 at 1995. We beat West Ham 1-0. David Seaman saved a Julian Dix penalty. So there's a memory for you. But yes, I have to say it was an iconic ground. It did have some fantastic atmosphere at the time, and it will be missed. But West Ham, they're moving on and onto the Olympic Stadium. 2 words I'll finish with on that regard. David Gold. My word.
Don't get me started.
Goodness gracious me, that man. Still. Anyway, right, so that's the midweek done. So we came into the final fixtures basically with pretty much everything tied up other than the European places. Sky did their very best to make it dramatic. Before we get into the games, Sky did their very best to make it dramatic, and then, wouldn't you know it, one of the games they were featuring didn't even get played. For any of our listeners living under a rock, what happened at Old Trafford? Because you've been doing some research on this.
Yeah, this story does interest me primarily because when it started breaking, as a journalist, this doesn't just affect football. When it started to break, this concerned me on political levels as well, with the EU referendum and stuff coming up. But this is a football podcast, so let's stick with just what happened. The game was abandoned after about 45 minutes before kickoff, I should say, because they discovered a suspicious package in the bathrooms in Old Trafford. Now, it's not confirmed yet because, as any self-respecting journalist will tell you, the Daily Mail is not a renowned holy book when it comes to reporting. But the Daily Mail is currently saying that the interesting device that was discovered in the bathroom was a mobile phone that was attached to some of the piping with a load of mobile phone wires and cables and stuff falling out of it. They are currently reporting that it was a hoax. It was a fake. It was left there completely by accident a couple of weeks ago during a training incident with bomb experts or stadium officials or whatever the training session was for. So interesting decision. I was saying to you before the pod, we can mock it now, but the important thing is that they didn't know at the time, so they did the smart thing. They got everyone out. They made sure everyone was safe. But it's a surreal story to end the season on. It was dealt with as a controlled explosion, and nothing has come of it clearly. But the current report that I'm reading is that it was just left there accidentally. So top job to Man United for getting it sorted and making sure that everyone was safe. But it's just so typically British in the end that it just turned out to be a toy essentially.
Yeah, it's very, very odd, wasn't it? But as you say, credit where credit's due. They did a fantastic job evacuating. I did see a lot of Man United fans or people retweeting rather harshly mocking some Man United fans that posted like my very first game at Old Trafford, and all those kind of tweets were going around. I don't know how legit they were, but you've got to feel for them a little bit. And
for Bournemouth, that's a heck of a trip.
And for Bournemouth, absolutely. And we should say this is not to make a joke out of what could have been a very serious incident, but I did chuckle when people said the suspicious package seen at Old Trafford was rumoured to be Marouane Fellaini. That did make me chuckle just a bit. But no, not to make light of it. Fair play to the authorities for getting them out. And the game to be replayed on Tuesday, are we right in saying?
Yes, I'm going to be down at St Mary's at the Kelvin Davies testimonial match. So if Bournemouth somehow find a way to win that stadium is going to absolutely erupt. So I'm thoroughly looking forward to Tuesday.
Yes, that could be fun. Okay, let's move on then. So the games that were played. So we'll start with the Man City element then, because obviously that was the game that that was sort of key to this Man United game, if there was to be one. Of course, there wasn't a game in the end. Manchester City's travelled to Swansea knowing that they just needed a point to secure European qualification, whether it be in third, depending, yeah, put the teeth in, would depend on Arsenal. But however, if they got the point, they would at least be in the qualifying places, and they got the point they needed. A 1-1 draw at Swansea. Iheanacho, former Hipsters' choice, he got the opener on 5 minutes. Andre Ayew equalised for Swansea. And then Man City proceeded to miss a hat load of chances. But they are in just... Do you think this is the result that they were looking just to get over the line, or do you think there'll be a tinge of, oh God, our season basically starts in about 3 weeks now?
Yeah, there's probably a hint of that. I think the biggest thing for Man City right now will be a feeling of disappointment that they couldn't send Pellegrini away with a win, because they've had 3 poor results in the run up to him leaving. But I mean, the game wasn't a classic, and the goal that Ayew scored takes a huge deflection off the wall as he takes the free kick. So they can probably feel a little bit hard done by, but at the same time, you've got to take your chances, and they didn't do it. So I think focus will very quickly shift to Pep and to the future. I don't think it's going to be too concerning that they finished 4th. I can't remember if Liverpool winning the Europa League affects them or not, and their Champions League place. That's probably one for John to answer another day. But it's still an interesting one to see Man City struggle as much as they did. I'm sure Pep will have been watching the games, and be very, very interesting to see how his first press conference goes and how his summer goes, because that result against Swansea doesn't strike me personally with a great deal of excitement for the current Man City squad. But who knows?
Yeah. I say, like you quite rightly said, they got the job done. And don't get me wrong, they had the chances to win this game very comfortably.
We should also stress that they could always lose it if there's an 18-goal swing in the Man United game.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's not out of the question. Yeah.
No, that that really would be. Can you imagine? Imagine the scenes if United were, 15-0 up with 20 minutes to go. Jesus. Anyway, I don't think that's going to happen. But you never know. You never say never in football. Ask Leicester fans. So that left Manchester City qualified. We already knew Arsenal, Spurs, and of course Leicester as champions were already qualified. However, we didn't know what order, did we? So I'm going to start with Arsenal, because they basically knew that they had to beat Aston Villa to secure 3rd place. And there was a chance they could get 2nd. So we'll start with Arsenal. They did the job. A hat-trick from Olivier Giroud. It seems to be a running theme with Arsenal strikers under fire grabbing last-day hat-tricks. Theo Walcott did it last season, I seem to remember, against West Brom, I think it was. And then a late goal. I was gutted. It was given as a Mark Bunn goal. It would have been so nice for Mikel Arteta to have been given that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not even an Arsenal fan. I was upset that it comes back off Bunn.
Yeah.
It would have been so nice to have seen him get it, but there you go.
It would have. And emotional farewells for both Mikel Arteta and Thomas Rosicky, and possibly Mathieu Flamini at the end of the game. So Arsenal, pretty routine victory. We've said all there is to say about Villa, but what, if anything, impressed you about Arsenal's sort of attitude and setup today? Because there were periods where this game was 1-0 for a very long period of time.
Yeah, I think, having listened to the other pods that you guys are involved with, it seems that the major problem with Arsenal is they just don't shoot enough. And I was watching Soccer Saturday or Soccer Sunday or whatever they wanted to call it today, and Tony Cottee was doing the game, and all he kept saying was, why aren't they shooting more? They need to be shooting more. They could have this wrapped up. Aston Villa are still getting them on the counter. They need to have this wrapped up. Why aren't they shooting more? And for most of the game, it seemed like it was going to be a kind of touch and go dodgy Arsenal result, because it was 1-0 up until like the 80th minute or something, and it didn't feel safe, even against Aston Villa, who you would just assume you would be able to beat. But they've, like so many relegated teams, as I said last week, as soon as they get relegated, they just seem to perk up a bit, and they've been scoring a couple of goals recently. So it was never out of, it was never safe for Arsenal. But thankfully, they rocked it in the last 10 minutes. They really started to throw a party. I think some of the finishes from Giroud were really, really good, and I think he's showing a different side of him to some Arsenal fans. And then, like you said, the Arteta goal at the end, it would have been so nice to see him claim that, and I'm sure he will claim it himself. But there's no doubt that it comes back off the bar, and it's only Mark Bunn's back that sends it into the net. So, I mean, for Arsenal fans, considering the context of the rest of the day, this is a fantastic result. I think if it had finished 4-0 and things elsewhere hadn't gone in Arsenal's favour, it still might feel a bit like a bit of a meh season. But thankfully for Arsenal, as I'm sure you're about to tell everyone, it didn't turn out so meh.
No, and you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, is it success or failure of a season? I think meh is a good description. However, if you are an Arsenal fan, that turned the spotlight on St James's Park, where we'll touch on Newcastle in a minute. But Spurs and Pochettino and all their sort of superstars of the season travelled up to Newcastle, basically knowing that they needed to get a point. I think it was a point, wasn't it, to secure the second space?
Unless the goals
swing of ridiculous amount, 7 or 8 goals, wasn't it? So yes. However, there
was a goal swing, but
there was a goal swing in Newcastle's favour, 5-1.
Yes.
Tell me you saw this coming, because I didn't.
Well, the most I can claim is that last week I sat here on this pod and said it's not simple, because I've been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks that the Pochettino style is fantastic, but eventually it blows up and the players can't do it anymore. And we were waiting, and it didn't happen right up until the point where Leicester were running away with the league, and then the legs started to tire because Tottenham weren't guaranteed of anything. And I think we saw it against Chelsea. We then saw it again last week against Southampton, and it was never out of the question this week. 5 is the shock. You know, if it was 2-1, you could kind of go, oh yeah, fair enough. You know, Newcastle just want to turn up on their last day, try and remind Rafa why he should be staying and this kind of stuff. But for Tottenham, I mean, 5 is. It's insane to think they could concede 5 at all, because Tottenham, generally speaking, are very good defensively. And if they hadn't conceded 5, they would have only conceded 30 goals this season, which would have been the best in the league. But they've conceded so many that Man United are now the best defence in the league, and they're only 1 goal behind Arsenal and Leicester now. It's ridiculous to think a team that is so good defensively conceded 5. But the thing that should be said in their defence is that the penalty that Sissoko. And I should say this. I know I'm going to say he wins it. He really does win it. He just throws himself to the floor. It's very well done. As far as dives go, it's one of the best dives you will ever see, because it looks so natural. But he has absolutely bought that penalty. It's a clear dive, and now the referee's missed it. He's going to laugh when he sees it on Match of the Day later. But I mean, for Tottenham, I like Tottenham. I like the direction they're going in. I like the manager. I like the players they've got. I think they've got a big future. But it is absolute comedy that they've had such a good season and then they've blown it on the last day in such a fashion. It just reminds me of Man City losing 8-0 to Middlesbrough on the final day. Just in terms of off the scale, incredible moments that you never saw coming. Just insane. Absolutely madness.
Yeah, never saw it coming. You're absolutely right. And it's Arsenal fans have a little thing where they say they celebrate St Totteringham's Day, which is the mathematical point of the season where Spurs can no longer catch Arsenal. It's gone all the way to the last game of the season today, but trust me, a lot of Arsenal fans are still celebrating it. And even more ironic, of course, Moussa Sissoko, as you mentioned there, long been linked with Arsenal. Wouldn't it be ironic if he was to sign for Arsenal now? He'd be a cult hero for life, I think, with that penalty. And we should say Mitrovic was sent off in that game for what I haven't seen yet. What I hear is a pretty horrific tackle on Kyle Walker. So, yes, with 10 men no less, Newcastle score 5. We should touch on Newcastle because I don't know about you, but I get the distinct impression that Rafa Benitez is quite keen on sticking around. I think he's been very clever in how he's worded his statements, but in the interviews he's given to the national press, he's sort of given the idea that if Mike Ashley and Charnley, the chef at Newcastle, chief exec there, were to agree to his demands, which I can only imagine are certain players and having full control, I would guess, it sounds to me like he's open to staying unless a massive job comes up. If you had to put money on it, do you see him sticking around next season?
See, this is, for me, it's on the scale of Leicester for you, because teams at the top of the league just couldn't see how Leicester could stay there, and I've been saying all season that they can do it. You know, as long as they were in the top 4, they were in the title race. You know, it wasn't a surprise to me. When we got to about Christmas time, it was normal to see Leicester at the top of the league, but the other teams around Leicester were all just, they'll fall away, they'll do this, they'll do that. So it was a shock to the big teams to see Leicester do it. The thing with me and Newcastle is that I cannot rationalise in any way the idea of Rafa Benitez being in charge of a championship team. I cannot fathom that. That is just too far gone for me. So if I was going to put money on it, I'd say he's going to go. But you can't rule it out at this point. He said it himself. His heart is telling him to stay, but his head isn't there yet. He's just got to think it over. And the thing is with Rafa is that he would be the first big manager to be in the Championship. He was managing Real Madrid at the start of this season. He would be a blockbuster name, and teams would go to. Just put this in context. If you have Aston Villa and Newcastle in the same division as, for example, Burton and Rotherham, a team like Burton Albion will go to Aston Villa and go, "Wow, we could, get a result here at Aston Villa. What a moment that would be!" And then you go and you think, go to St James's Park, which will be packed out, and Rafa Benitez will be the manager. That's an incentive that they've never had in the Championship, and it's insane to think that there are players in that Championship division that will never make the Premier League, that will have spent their entire lives in non-league and lower league football, that will then get the chance to play a Rafa Benitez Newcastle twice in a season. I can't fathom it. So for me personally, I've got to say that no, he won't be there. But if he is there, then the Championship has just made an absolutely incredible signing.
Boggles the mind, doesn't it, to think of him down there? But there was some good humour from the Sunderland fans. Did you see the plane and the banner?
Yes, I did.
Which was very, very clever. A play on Alvida Saint Pet. I believe it said Alvida Saint.
Tying Up, I believe.
Alvida Saint Tying Up, yeah. Essentially, it's a show for foreign listeners. It's a show based in Newcastle called Alvida Saint Pet during the 80s with Jimmy Nail and co. It was a play-off on words of that, the Sunderland fans hiring a plane to fly over to mock their neighbours. So all fair in love and war. But it will feel bittersweet, I would imagine, today, because Newcastle turn in a performance like that and ultimately go down. So it will be bittersweet. And I cannot help but think there's going to be a lot of upheaval at that club over the summer.
Well, again, that depends entirely on Rafa.
Absolutely,
because if he stays, then none of those players are going to leave, because they're going to think we're going to be here for 1 year, we're going to go back up, and then Rafa's going to take us up 10th, 9th, whatever. If he stays, that club changes for the next 5-10 years. But it depends on not only him, but how he reacts to the Championship. Because I say this every single time a team goes down and the manager in charge has no experience of it. You have no conception of how competitive the Championship is until you are in it, until you are watching it on the sidelines and thinking, wow, I thought we were going to roll over Rotherham and now they're 2-0 up by 10 minutes. It's a ridiculous league. And it's just too many variables with Newcastle at the moment. So, I mean, but it's like I say, it would be blockbuster for the Championship to have Rafa in it, and I just can't imagine it at the moment.
No, and if you want to know anything about how crazy the Championship is, just give Neil Warnock a quick phone call and ask him about Rotherham. I mean, what he's done, wow, what he did to keep them up in a league where they were dead and buried. Unbelievable, it really is, but still. Anywho, let's move on then. So they were the games that had sort of bits and bobs riding on them. A lot of the other games didn't have a lot riding on them, so we'll just kind of briefly gloss over a couple of these. Chelsea 1-1 draw with Leicester City. Champions Leicester City, no less. More on them later on. Little plug to make. Danny Drinkwater with a late equaliser for Leicester.
Very good goal as well.
Yes, I've heard it's good. I haven't actually seen it. I must admit yet. But Fabregas scoring a penalty for Chelsea and Drinkwater popping up with a leveller. He might get into the England squad, which I think is due to be announced tomorrow for the Euros. So good luck to him. But guard of honour from Chelsea to their Leicester counterparts, and a rather touching sort of presentation to Claudio Ranieri. I actually thought for a club that, I'll just go out and say I don't think have been the classiest over the periods of time we've known them. I thought that was a nice touch. But I want to ask you a little bit more about something else to do with this game, and that is John Terry, who gave a very emotional speech actually after the game. He was in tears on the pitch, and a deal has been offered to the former England captain, but it seems very much like Chelsea have almost got him banged to rights here, because he obviously wants to stay, but I think they've offered him a vastly reduced package with very limited playing time. Do you see the Chelsea skipper sticking around next season and playing a bit part role, or do you think he is going to go for the lucrative lure of MLS or China perhaps?
I don't know. I think it's such a catch-22 for Chelsea to have stuck him in. I almost get the feeling that what's happened here is that someone from China or the MLS has put a contract on the table for X amount of £1,000 a week, And because John Terry was twisting so many arms and shedding so many tears when he announced it in January, Chelsea have kind of said, all right, fair enough, you can have your deal, but you're going to have it on the very last day when all the other big offers are in. So if you want to take one of those big offers, you have to explain to the Chelsea fans why. It just kind of feels like that to me, like it's a bit of a dig in the ribs for him. But it completely depends on him, really. I mean, if he wants to go out and get one last big packet to retire on, then he'll choose the MLS or China or whoever else wants him. But if he's a club man, and he does strike me as a club man, I'm not his biggest fan as a person. As a professional, he's fantastic, but as a person, I'm not his biggest fan. But he does kind of strike me as the kind of guy that would stick around with Chelsea. So it's a tough one. I think he's kind of backed himself into a corner with his whole spiel from the last few months about how much he wants the new deal. So I think he's got to take it. I think he's trapped himself. But it's completely up to him. And again, it's another one of those that could go any way, really.
Yeah, we shall see how that one plays out over the summer. Speaking of over the summer, another team that's going to have a lot of bits and bobs on their plate, whether it be keeping players or hiring a new manager, Everton. Now, since we last recorded, Spanish Bobby Martinez has departed. I think it's fair to say we both saw this one coming and both predicted it. Yeah, real dead man walking. Well, he has finally walked, replaced today by David Unsworth and who was the guy on the bench? I forget. Somebody else was on the bench today for Everton. One of the former players, I believe. But they oversaw a 3-0 victory over Norwich. McCarthy, Baines penalty, and Morales with the goal. Just with Everton, it'd be difficult to speculate on who the new manager will be, although I have my theory that it might end up being Frank de Boer, I think. But with Everton, what's the biggest challenge this season? Keeping hold of probably their three biggest stars in Stones, Lukaku, and who's the other one I was thinking of? Barkley. Or is it rebuilding and bringing in players to convince those players to stick around?
I think you only keep those three players if a big name manager comes in. If it's I don't think he would go, but if it's Eddie Howe or someone like that, I think someone like Lukaku will roll his eyes and go, nuts to this, I'm off to PSG. But if it's Pellegrini, if it's De Boer, then you never know. Again, it depends who they bring in and what direction they want to go in. Because if it's Pellegrini, then that club is about to change for the next few years, because that would surely mean the investment's going to be there as well. And if Pellegrini comes in, you'd like to think those kinds of teams, those kinds of players would go, right, we're going in the right direction. So it's another one of those that it's difficult to call, which is going to be more important. But I think the first thing is to show the fans that they're going to put some real thought into this. They want to make sure that Everton are going in the right direction, and just make an appointment that the fans can get behind.
Indeedy. And as for Spanish Bob, I have to ask you this question because I think if anyone's going to know the answer to this, it is your good self. I think, personally, he'd be a good fit for a championship side. I think, like the style, the sort of all-at-it, energetic approach in as you rightly say, a league that can be chaotic at the best of times. Is there anybody you could think that he could drop down to the championship level and work with? Obviously, he's had success with Wigan and Swansea before. So is there anywhere? Because I can't, looking at the Premier League sides now, I can't see a job that's made for him in the Premier League right now anyway.
The only club in the Premier League that might interest him at the moment is Aston Villa. I was
just going to say Aston Villa. That's the and of course they are now a championship side. So
yeah, the thing is with Aston Villa though is that he's got to do everything there. It's not like with Everton and Swansea where it was all kind of set up for him and he just had to put the players in the right places and say just go forward and never mind about what happens behind you. With Aston Villa, he's got to rebuild everything, and that includes the defence. That includes sorting things up at the top with the board and stuff. So, I mean, I think Villa would be more interested in Martinez than Martinez would be in Villa. As for Championship teams, Derby still haven't got a manager. I don't see him dropping that low. I think he'll fancy his chances on the continent myself. But I mean, Derby's a fair shout because Derby just have a habit of throwing away promotions, and they need something to just energise them and attract some bigger names. If the rumours about Carlos Carvajal leaving are true and Sheffield Wednesday go up, that could be a fit. But I mean, the only other one is, I'm sure we'll touch on Watford briefly in a bit, but we heard earlier this week that Quique Sanchez Flores was going, and there are rumours that Massimo Cellino is now interested in him for Leeds. So if that's true, then there's nothing stopping a man like Cellino thinking, well, why not Martinez? But I personally don't think that Martinez is going to be in the frame of mind of rebuilding his image. I think he wants to. I think he will feel like he. Think of Laudrup. I don't think he'll settle for anything below Everton. I think he'll think he's done a good job, and there are bigger teams out there that would appreciate his work. So, Championship. I mean, it could happen, but I wouldn't put money on it myself.
No, I agree. It's just weird, actually. Laudrup, that's a name. I just suddenly sort of dawned on me. Christ, where's he gone?
He's off in
back in Denmark, isn't it?
Yeah, it's some obscure country that no one knows any of the teams from.
Yeah.
But he keeps saying that he'll only come back for a Champions League team, and every Champions League team sacks the manager and goes, "Who's Michael Laudrup?" So you're probably not going to see him again.
Isn't it Qatar? Isn't that where he went?
That rings a bell, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Did such a good job at Swansea, or seemed to have done, and then it all fell apart. And...
Yeah, unfortunately, I think he's, again, like Martinez, I think he's just got a big idea about, I played the right style, teams are like style, and it doesn't work in England because we want results. In Spain or Germany or somewhere, it might fly, style over results, but...
Maybe he'll go back to Spain, perhaps. That would be another good fit. But if you need a job, Roberto, I've got a Sunday League team. We're crying out for some attacking coaching. So if you need a job, we can only pay you in pasties and cider. But if you fancy some sunny weather down in Devon, pop down. We'll get you on attacking coaching, because I don't think defensive coaching is his thing, to be honest.
No.
But I should say, lovely bloke. So say that much about him. Anyway, let's. You touched on them actually. Let's segue into the Watford. Drew with Sunderland. So Sunderland obviously freshly safe from their miraculous escape. Goals from Rodwell and Lenz. Yes, he's still there, Jermaine Lenz, for Sunderland. Sebastian Prudl and Troy Deeney, who's had a pretty decent season. I think any other season would probably be knocking on the door of an England spot. Unfortunately for him, there's a lot ahead of him. But what do you make of this Watford thing with Quique Sanchez-Flores? I mean, it's been clear for a while that he was going to move on. Bizarrely, a lot of Watford fans seem to be happy with this. I mean, I know his sort of style of play isn't the most exciting, but does this smack to you a bit of a side that are maybe on the precipice of a Charlton, where they think they're better than they are, and this could end up going very badly wrong?
Yeah, I think you've got to look at Newcastle as a team that thought the grass was greener without the manager, and then went off and found someone else, and it's been proven that their former manager was doing a very good job. I like Quique. I think not only as a man, I think everyone likes a bit of Quique, but as a manager, I think he was a really good fit for Watford. I thought he just did a very good job for them, and it wouldn't shock me to see Everton linked with him, because I think he could still do a job for them there. So I am surprised. But at the same time, it's not my club. I don't get to see them every week. And the Watford reaction has been very 60-40. It's been a lot of people saying, he's been a good manager. What did we expect? 13th with 45 points is fantastic for a team that's just come up to the Premier League. And the other side of it is that since the turn of the year, they have been in free fall. It's been relegation form, and they have not done well enough, because they were 9th or 8th or something around Christmas time when this pod started, and they finished the season in 13th. So I get both sides of the argument, but for Watford, I fear it's a case of thinking the grass is greener and Alan Pardew at Newcastle kind of situation. But again, depends entirely on who they bring in.
Yeah. I'd say I hope it all works out, because Watford are they're a good club, good values, good family club, and I'd like to see them stick around. I've always quite enjoyed Vicarage Road. Weirdly, I'm not a big fan of Watford as a place, but Vicarage Road is always quite welcoming and always a nice place to go. So, yeah, I hope it doesn't go wrong. But I do worry about that situation. But by the way, Flores at Leeds, that seems to fit very well. Just quickly, very randomly, Leeds United. Just touching very, very briefly. Do you know they have a player in their youth ranks called Ronaldo Vieira?
No, I did not know that. Yeah. He's going to be some kind of player, isn't he?
Yeah, I'll have to give the credit to the BBC here. There's somebody rang in their 606 programme last night and was saying that he made his debut as a 90th-minute sub in their last game, Leeds' last game of the season. And apparently, he's called Ronaldo Vieira. I looked him up because I thought it was a joke, but it is legit. He's a Brazilian teenager, apparently. So there you go, Leeds fans.
Being a ballerina, build of an ox.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. Or he'll be the new bloody Bebe or something like that. It'd just be an absolute car crash. But interesting. We'll follow him, maybe. He'll be our English breakfast hips to follow. Anyway, we can put it off no longer. Southampton Yes, talk to me. Southampton. They came into the weekend or came into the final fixtures knowing that they needed to win and a couple of other results to go in their favour to achieve Europa League qualification. And what do you know? What happened?
It's amazing. The end of this season, it has been absolutely surreal the way we've ended 2016. I was absolutely sure that we would not finish fifth or sixth. I was okay with seventh. That was fine by me. Because for those that don't know, the situation was essentially because Southampton, Manchester United, and West Ham United were all so clustered in the fifth, sixth, and seventh places. We were seventh, and we needed favours from Manchester United and or West Ham to get into European football. And West Ham travelled to Stoke, and obviously Man United were hosting Bournemouth. And neither of those games I looked at and thought, well, you never know. It just, to me, in my head, it was just, oh, that's a routine win for West Ham, a routine for Man United. And we had Crystal Palace, so I thought, okay, it was kind of the status quo, nothing's going to change. And then we started playing, it was very nice, it was nice and relaxing. It was, another day in the park, let's just get the win and see how we do. And we ended up putting 4 past Crystal Palace, 4-1 win, which is a fantastic way to end the season, even though there was a penalty that shouldn't have been given, but we'll take it. And it was just a case really of seeing how West Ham would do. And I couldn't believe that West Ham managed to contrive to throw away a guaranteed Europa League place. They ended up losing 2-1 to a 87th minute winner, I think, from Diouf. And it's mad to think that we ended up above them. But I think the real reason it feels mad is because of just the context of the season. To see the table as it is now, I know Man United have still got to play Bournemouth and they could jump above us. But let me stress this. Southampton are 5th. If the season ended today and Man United had lost, we're 5th in the Premier League. The only 4 teams above us are Leicester, Arsenal, Tottenham, Man. We're 5th. That's insane as a Southampton fan just to think that as of right now, we're 5th. And not only are we 5th, whether we finish 5th or 6th, depending on how the Man United game goes, we will have achieved our highest Premier League finish ever. We've broken the Premier League points record that we set for ourselves last year. We're guaranteed a Europa League space now. Depending on how well Man United do in the FA Cup, we could go straight into the group stage. And, 5th, it doesn't make any sense that we're here after 7 years ago, as I said on this pod a couple of weeks ago, where I was genuinely thinking about having to support Reading if my club went out of business, and now we're 5th, and it seems like the media haven't given us any credit for it. It's just gone slowly under the radar. We've just been doing our own thing, haven't worried about it. But not only are we 5th, we're 3 points off Manchester City in 4th, and we've topped West Ham, who have been lauded all season for Bilic and the new stadium and all this kind of stuff. No one has mentioned us, but we just did our job, got through things, avoided a sticky patch over Christmas, which, if that had gone a bit better for us, who knows what we could have been. It's surreal end to the season, and I know none of that had any bearing on the game or whatever, but it's just maddening, and I can't get my head around it as a Southampton fan.
3 points from Champions League football. That's when you break it all down, that's
yeah.
in itself.
And if you go, there's a screenshot of our run that Sky Sports News put together when we were absolutely tanking it over Christmas. You look at some of those score lines: 2-1 against West Ham. We should have had that one. We were 1-0 up first half. We could have been 5 or 6-0 up, and they came out to win that 2-1. Norwich beating us 1-0. A 1-1 draw with Aston Villa. There are so many results over that period that all it needed was just one goal or just a bit of better defence or a bit of better luck, and the whole season could have changed for us. And this is what I've been saying on this pod, that we just need a goal scorer, and then we're there to finish 3 points off of Champions League football. I mean, that's incredible. As a Southampton fan, that is surreal to think of, and I cannot be any prouder of the team, of the manager, of the players. It's just insane.
And it will only intensify rumours of, links of Ronald Koeman's potential next suitors, I guess, and that will be the biggest task now to keep him. I mean, he seems happy, doesn't he? It's a question of.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to my friend Levi, who's a Man United fan, earlier this afternoon, and he said, as self-admittedly as someone that was ignorant of the situation and was just looking from the outside, that Koeman is giving off noises like he's ready to go. I don't believe that. I really, really don't. The impression I got about Koeman from day one, because before he signed his contract and joined us, the stories were that he was looking to set down roots somewhere. He wanted to build a dynasty. He wanted to be somewhere for a number of years. And Southampton were a perfect fit for him. And it's been fantastic, the 2 years we've had with him. He will be here for the next year. The links to Everton are hilariously bad, because we all know he will be here for another year. He is one of the most honest, upstanding guys in football management, and he will see out his contract. After that, we don't know, but he's meeting with the board later this week. As long as the board say to him, we're going to give you £30 million, we're going to go after someone like, and I know you're going to weep at the idea of it, but Lacazette or Batshuayi or someone, we're going in for a big attacker and we plan on keeping everyone, he'll sign. It might only be another year extension, it might be only a 2-year extension, and he might then afterwards say, okay, fair enough, I've taken this as far as I can. But I do not see any reason for him to be going right now, unless he's got one ear against the wall of the Emirates and thinks that Wenger's going at the end of next year and wants to try and buy in. But I don't think Koeman wants to be the David Moyes to Wenger's Sir Alex. So it's an odd one, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it, especially after today.
No, I'm with you. And I think for me, Barcelona is the job he really wants, and that's not available right now. So why go anywhere? Just keep building on your dynasty at Southampton, keep making it good, and keep your stock high while you can. That's what I say. And what an achievement. And to be fair, I've watched your boys quite a lot this season. They play some really good stuff at times, and we won't mention the 4-0 over Arsenal. But it's been genuinely entertaining. And of course, you've wished Graziano Pella farewell. He got a goal and an assist on his final appearance, and Ryan Bertrand scored for the penalty spot.
Yeah, that's only because we had Tadic off.
Yes.
Everyone was looking around going, who's got the penalty?
Who's going to take it? Yeah.
It was either Ryan or it was going to be Kelvin Davis to bring him on for one last throw of the dice. But yeah, it was a weird day, very weird day.
Good job he scored, really, wasn't it? Good job he scored. But yeah, absolutely, I'm with you. And just to tap into my knowledge base, 3 strikers you could get in France. Lacazette is indeed one. Michy Batshuayi is indeed another. I'll tell you who you could go after, and you'd get him for a snip of a price. And he kept Toulouse in Ligue 1 last night with Sam Ben Yedder. I think he would be an absolute perfect fit for you. But hey, what do I know? We shall see. Right, couple more games to just round up then, and then we'll have a little natter about things going on in the Football League, and of course we'll touch on our predictions, see how we got on. So, as you rightly said, Stoke City beating West Ham, which allowed you guys to slip into those Europa League spots. Mikel Antonio put West Ham in front, all was looking good, but then Gianni and Bullet equalised, and Mohamed Diouf, got the late winner with a couple of minutes to go with the goals there. Liverpool warmed up for their Europa League game, or Europa League final, I should say, with Sevilla on Wednesday with a 1-1 draw away at West Brom. Rondon put Tony Pulis' men ahead, and Liverpool equalised. Jordan Ibe with the equaliser there. I believe, looking at the lineups, much changed Liverpool side. Yeah, the likes of Smith, Laver at centre-back, Brannigan.
It's a very good goal by Ibe as well. Very good. It was he essentially ran from the halfway line, beat a couple of players, slide it in. It's a lovely goal.
I have to have a look at that. And did Adam Bogdan drop any in his own net? Because he is.
I believe he was at fault for the goal. Yes.
Good, splendid. Keep it up.
I certainly remember Jeff Stelling commenting on Adam Bogdan being in the net. So.
Crikey, good. God bless him, but he's not had the best of times. So that wraps up the Premier League. Just out of sort of sheer interest to everybody listening, I suppose we should just quickly run through the final table. Leicester winning the league by 10 points. Unthinkable, really, when you think of, we're all saying how close it could be, and they've won it by 10 points, 81 points from second place Arsenal. Hooray! 71 points. Spurs, 70 points in third. Any Spurs fans listening, I do apologise. That was very unprofessional of me. Manchester City sneak into the Champions League places in fourth to qualify, of course. Southampton, as we said, fifth, although that could change. Man United with that game to play with Bournemouth in sixth, 63 points. West Ham 62, Liverpool 8, 60. Stoke City 9th to 51. Chelsea sneak into the top 10. Officially, the worst defending champions in Premier League history. 50 points from 10 games. From 38 games in 10th, sorry.
That's Everton. The Falcao effect.
Oh, God, yeah. Everton and Swansea tied together in 11th and 12th on 47 points. Watford 45 and 13th. West Brom 14th on 43. Palace and Alan Pardew and all that magic. Whoops, that didn't quite work out. 15th, 42 points. Bournemouth with a game to play, 16th, 42. Sunderland of escaping the drop. Big Sam Allardyce, Meatloaf impressions and all. He keeps his Black Cats just above water, 39 points they survive. And then going down, Newcastle 18th, Norwich 19th, Aston Villa 20th, and relegated Villa 17 points and a goal difference of -49.
Would you like a fact about Aston Villa's point total?
Go for it.
It's the lowest points total they have ever accumulated, even including back in the day when a win only cost 2 points.
Ouch.
It's incredible how badly they've done this year.
It's almost like open wound, insert salt mixed with lemon juice TCP here, isn't it? It's
mad.
A mild gaping wound there for Aston Villa, who, much to be done with them over the summer. Right, should we have a look at the Predictatrons, just out of morbid curiosity? Should we start with our absent guests? Danny's not here, but he predicted a couple correctly. So he went West Ham 2, Man United 1, so he got the West Ham bit right for midweek. Norwich 0, Watford 0, he got that one wrong. Sunderland 1, Everton 0, he predicted a Sunderland win there, so that's fine. Chelsea 1, Liverpool 1, or Liverpool 1, Chelsea 1, he got that bang on. He went for Arsenal 5-0 over Villa. Well, he wasn't far off. Chelsea to lose 4-2 at home to Leicester. Not right there. Everton to lose at home to Norwich. Not right there. Man United 2-0 over Bournemouth. Could still be right. He actually did put his neck on the line. He said Newcastle would beat Spurs 1-0. He said Southampton would win 3-1. He wasn't far off there. He said Stoke would lose at home to West Ham 3-1. Swansea won Manchester City 1, sorry. Bang on. Watford won Sunderland 2 and West Brom won Liverpool 1. Bang on. So well done, Danny. Good piece of predicting. Ross, what did you go for? Well, you went for Sunderland to beat Everton. So you got that, 2-1. Chelsea 2, Liverpool 2. That was a draw, but not the right score. West Ham 1, Man United 1. Ended up a 2-1 victory, obviously, for 3-2 victory, sorry, for West Ham. You had Norwich, Watford 1-1. You had Arsenal to beat Villa 3-0. You had Chelsea 1, Leicester 1. Bang on. Well done, you. Everton to beat Norwich 2-1. Manchester United, Bournemouth 2-2. Newcastle 1, Tottenham 1, Southampton 2, Palace 0. Stoke 0, West Ham 3. Swansea 1, Man City 1. Again, bang on. Watford 0, Sunderland 2, and you went for West Brom 0, Liverpool 2. So a mixed bag there.
Can I also say in my defence that today I decided to put a bet on for my last bet of the Premier League season. I went 4-0 Arsenal and I won. So
nice. I've made some money today as well. But don't gamble, kids. It's a mugs game. Even though I've been on a bit of a hot streak recently. I had plenty of downs, trust me. Finally for me then, I went for Arsenal 3, Villa 0. I went for Chelsea 1, Leicester 1. Bang on. Hey. I went Everton 2-1 over Norwich. I went Man United 3-1. I went Newcastle 1-0. I went Southampton 2-1 over Palace. I went Stoke City 1, West Ham 2. I also went Swansea 1, Man City 3. Watford 2, Sunderland 1. And West Brom 1, Liverpool 3. So you and Danny got far more right than I did. So boo to that. Boo to that indeed. But I did say Sunderland would beat Everton in midweek and West Ham would win and Norwich would win and Liverpool would draw. So I was kind of right in some of those. So there you go. That's the Predictatron over for another season. It might make an appearance next season. But if Leicester win the league again next season, I'm giving up because we'll never be able to predict that.
what if we do?
Oh, crikey. I'll have to get you off the pod because I'll never at the end of it. If you do, well, crikey. If you do win it next year, we'll definitely have your manager. That's the deal. Right. Let's dip into the Football League, your passion. Before we talk about the games, these fonts, they're a bit quirky, aren't they? The new Football League fonts for next season?
I said to you, what the Pro Evolution Soccer are they? Because they just look so bland to me. I mean, they do a job. They look nice and professional, but it's just it's not what it was. You know, it just looks a bit odd to me.
Yeah, they're in fairness, it's not much better than the Premier League versions, which the Premier League versions are also a bit not so good. I still miss the old days of the big letters.
Yeah,
for the Premier
just
League
have some fun with it rather than all this professional stuff. It's mad.
I agree. I'm looking at them right now. If you want to see them, I'll maybe post a link on our Twitter account at some point later on. But they're quite bubbles in them and all sorts. It's very La Liga-esque, actually. Tom will like that. Right, so let's dip into the Football League then. So for those of people who don't know the system, or maybe for some of our overseas listeners who aren't familiar, at the end of the regular seasons in the Championship, League One and League Two, and indeed the non-league, you get the couple of teams that go up automatically, and then we have this wonderful thing called the playoff system. So we'll start with the Championship. It seems as if we know who is going to go to Wembley, because Sheffield Wednesday beating Brighton, who had no less than 4 injuries in one game, very unlucky, by 2-0 in the first leg, and Hull City went to Derby and, well, just smashed and grabbed them off the pitch 3-0. And that third goal in the last minute could prove very vital. What was your thoughts briefly on these 2 games, and who do you fancy in the final, if indeed these 2 teams get through?
Well, the final, I think, is going to be head versus heart, because I've said Hull all through it. You've said Sheffield Wednesday. But if I could just pick a team that I would just like to see go up, it'd be Sheffield Wednesday as well. So if it's going to be Hull versus Sheffield Wednesday, then my credibility as a Championship expert could be blown out of the water by you. And just, I like Sheffield Wednesday, so it's not a good final for me if that's the way it's going to go.
It would be pure luck, I should say. I just like Sheffield Wednesday.
It's just I'm brought on here as the beacon of knowledge when it comes to the Championship, and if I'm beaten by you just because you like Sheffield Wednesday, it's going to ruin me. I'm still Team Hull. I've said it all along that they are the only team out of the 4 that were running away with this division. They are the only team that knew a couple of months ago, hey, we're going to be in these playoffs, we've got to be ready for them. And you can never, ever, ever overestimate how important that is. As you found out with Brighton, I know they had 4 injuries, but they could have been 2 or 3-0 down before those injuries even happened. So I think it's Hull's to lose at this point. But again, Sheffield Wednesday are a very good attacking team. They could do it, and I would love to see them do it. But for me, I just think Hull are a bit more of an efficient side. The Sheffield Wednesday game, for those who didn't see it, there was a very controversial goal chalked off at the start of the game, which I'd like to get your opinion on as well, Kris, because I'm very, very... I'm not even torn on it. I know how I feel about it. But the Brighton game was very interesting. It was sad to see the Brighton team fall apart as they did, because they did pick up 4 injuries. They had to make 2 of their changes before half time. They ended the game with 10 men because they just physically didn't have any more subs left. So it is kind of a shame to see Brighton peter out in the way they did. But it should obviously be said that the tie's not over. If anyone can overturn 2-0, then it's Brighton. They are a very good team. If they can get themselves together for the next leg, then that's not over by any stretch of the imagination. Although, as Sky Sports loved to tell us, no Championship team has ever overturned a 2-goal deficit in a playoff. But the first goal that was chalked off in that game, if you can imagine it, it's a long ball kicked downfield by the goalkeeper. The goal scorer Forestieri is clearly offside when the goalkeeper takes the kick, but the ball drops and Gary Hooper kind of flicks his leg at it, and the debate is whether or not he touched it, because if he has touched it, by the time he touches it, Forestieri is back on side and then breaks past the defence, picks up on the ball and puts it in the back of the net. If he doesn't touch it, then Forestieri is offside because of the last touch being from the goalkeeper. It's a very, very 50-50 when you watch it back. But I don't know about you, Kris, but when I was a kid growing up, the benefit was always given to the attacker. And I'm not keen on the idea of that not being given. For me, because it was such a tight call whether Hooper had touched that ball or not, I think it should have been given.
I watched this live, and I must admit it was surreal, really, because you had all the Wednesday fans up, and it seemed to go on for ages. That was the bit I couldn't work out. You know, the celebrations it was a good 30 seconds of celebration before the goal was eventually chalked off. I guess by the letter of the law, I mean, Gary Hooper, we should say to our listeners who haven't seen it, he doesn't get a touch. But there's one angle where you could clearly see that, you know, he could have. And my argument would be, well, he's gone to touch it, and Forestieri has gambled. So I'm with you, to be honest. I mean, yeah, you want to see the law imposed, but the advantage should be given to the attacker. There was enough. I would also say there was enough time between the ball going to Gary Hooper to be cleared. Do you know what I mean? The ball was in the air long enough for that to be adjudged. And I think if you're Brighton and you see a player running off, for me, the defender has got to be in on the cover if Forestieri begins to make that run. So yeah, I'm with you. To be honest, I would like to have seen it given, or at the very least, the rule has got to be made concrete, because I don't think it really was, and I got the impression there was a little bit of guessing going on with the officials as well.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, that's what bugs me about it, is that it's such a tight call. The benefit of the doubt should have gone to Forestieri, in my opinion. But B, if after the game, if he definitely hasn't got a touch and after the game you go, oh man, I shouldn't have given that. No one is blaming that referee for getting that wrong. But in a playoff game we'll talk about later between Plymouth and Portsmouth, there are 2 or 3 incidents in that you look at that the referee's even seen, and you just think, how did he not get that right? Clearly, he they should feel hard done by that hasn't been given. But that one is just so 50-50. For me, it does annoy me that it's not been given in favour of Forestieri. But there you go.
Yeah.
That's it's a strange one, but at the same time, I suppose for Brighton, it's good that it didn't count because they are still in with a shot. If anyone can get 2 goals against Sheffield Wednesday, it is Brighton. The other game was of course Hull versus Derby, and as Kris has already said, Hull managed to get 3 goals. Now I've said this for a few seasons now, and no one seems to believe me. But every time it comes around, everyone says, "Oh, I choose Derby for the playoffs. Yeah, they're going to be great." Derby will not leave this division unless they go up automatically because they just cannot do the playoffs for some reason. They're such a nice team. They've got such a nice setup. They give their managers a good chance. They give them the finances. They've got players in like Darren Bent and all these bright English talents, but they always contrive to throw away the playoffs. And they managed it again in pretty fantastic fashion against Hull. I thought Hull were as good as they've been all season. They looked like a team that had been prepping for this for months. And I can't see past Hull in either the second leg or in the final myself. But Derby, it just staggers me that so many people get on the Derby bandwagon. I know you've said before that you just don't see why, considering the money they've put in, they've really got to. But did you see Derby getting that kind of result?
No, if I'm honest. I mean, I watched the game, and again, I watched Sky's coverage, and I'll freely admit I don't watch as much Championship as you could self. And I have to say at this point, in the UK, the coverage of the Championship since it's left the BBC is appalling, by the way. Sky's coverage is very good, but terrestrial TV, I used to really look forward to watching Match of the Day, followed by the Championship when it was on BBC, so you'd watch them back to back, and it was always really good coverage, whereas now it's on, I think it's Channel 5, it's
it's awful.
It's a terrible show, and it's just so disjointed and all over the shop. I hate it. But anyway, that's a personal gripe. But no, I thought that I thought Derby would be up for it. I know that what's the aggregate score was 6-0 Derby over the 2 games or something in the league. So, I'll be honest, I expected more from Derby. I mean, Will Hughes is a player I really like the look of. I think he plays with a swagger and a maturity of one so young. They've got the chap up front who gets their goals, whose name completely escaped. Chris Martin, is it?
Yes, yeah.
They've got good players, and Richard Keogh, if you ever wanted a battle-scarred warrior at the heart of your defence, he'd probably be the one you would pick, or him or Sean Derry, I guess, from Championship. So, I was really surprised, and they just didn't seem to perform. And Hull, to their great credit, Scott Castle, I think, will have to ask himself big questions for the Abel Hernandez opener. But if you don't buy a ticket and all that, and the second goal was a cruel deflection. And I'll be honest, I missed the third goal because I turned off because I thought 2-0, that's it, done.
It's a counter-attack from a Derby corner.
Yeah.
They threw everyone forward and then Robertson caught him on the break.
And that really was suicidal because at 2-0 you go, well, there's an outside chance. At 3-0 for me, that game's done.
Yeah.
And I think that shows, if anything, the lack of experience of Darren Wassell, their manager who's been promoted from this youth team area. Bringing on Darren Bent with 4 minutes to go or whatever when you need a goal was completely perplexing. So, no, I have to say, I don't think Brighton Sheffield Wednesday is over. In fact, I think that goes all the way, possibly even to penalties. I'm going to call that on this pod now. I think that goes all the way. I can see Brighton getting the 2-0 because there isn't away goals in the playoffs either, is there?
No.
So I could see Wednesday even scoring and it being a 3-1. But I still think Wednesday will get there. But I think there's a lot to go in that tie. But yeah, for me, Hull are already there. Let's talk about League One, shall we? Down there, we've got another 2 games that seem to be fairly done and dusted. Barnsley, 3-0 victory over Walsall yesterday. Individual performance of some superlatives from Winnell. Is it Sean Winnell? I think it's Sean Winnell.
Oh, Sam Winnell.
Sam Winnell, you're absolutely right. He kind of tried to claim the first, but it was an own goal, and he scored the next 2. One was an absolute ripper. Two in a minute, in fact, second half. So Barnsley 3-0 up on Walsall from the first leg. Second leg is on Thursday next week. And then today, Bradford losing at home, surprisingly, to Millwall. Going in front through McMahon penalty, but Lee Gregory's had a very good season for Millwall. Steve Morrison and Martin with the third right on half-time. Millwall Barnsley final, pretty much done and dusted, do you think?
Yeah, I've Bradford kind of feel like they're swinging for the fences with these playoffs. I don't think it's not that they don't deserve to be where they are, but I don't think they're really suited for where they are. So I don't see them overcoming Millwall, especially away at the Den. I don't see them making it. And Barnsley were my pick to win these playoffs in League One. They have been a very, very efficient machine for at least the past 6 months, and it just feels like they've been building steam. I remember when Southampton were in the Championship, we got overtaken for first by Reading, who just went on this incredible run near the end of the season and just blew every team away, and they ended up winning the league. Barnsley feel like they're doing that on a bit of a smaller scale. They just went on such a good, consistent run near the end of the season. I think they've come into these playoffs as hot as anyone. And for me, I don't see Walsall overturning 3, as good as Walsall have been. For me, it's going to be Barnsley versus Millwall, and in a straight shootout, I think Barnsley have this all day long.
I think you're absolutely right. And in the final, were you sticking by? Because I think I went for Millwall. Did you go for Barnsley all the way through?
I don't think I actually mentioned anything last week with League One and League Two. But if I did, I would have said Barnsley. I just think they've gone into this in the right frame of mind and at the right time. So I couldn't see past them.
Fair enough. I will stick with Millwall. I wouldn't want to change my predictions. And finally, we should mention good old Argo down here in Plymouth. They overcame you. You've had a pretty good day, really, haven't you? Southampton, and then you watch your greatest rivals lose to a last-minute winner from Plymouth's Peter Hartley, who, if I'm not mistaken, came from the Scottish League. I'm sure he was at Hearts, I want to say. I'm looking. No, I'm thinking of another Hartley, clearly. I'm thinking Paul Hartley. He's ex-Hartlepool and Stevenage, Peter Hartley. But his header, nevertheless, in the last minute, sending the Argyle crowd into a raptures. Where I live here in Plymouth, I could hear the cheers across the hills.
This is a very interesting game for you and I, because you got to hear the Plymouth Argyle fans going wild today, and I was listening to Pompey fans going wild a couple of days ago.
It is quite bizarre. It's quite bizarre, isn't it, really, when you think about it? But yes, I thought, I don't know about you, but I thought overall Argyle deserved this. 1-0 victory. It was tight, it was tense, but the first leg was thrilling, really. 2-2 draw. And this lad at Argyle, I must admit, for a team on my doorstep, I've not seen enough of this. Jamil Matt looks a player. He's only coming to the side late in the season, but he seems to be a bit of a player, and he got both goals at Portsmouth. McNulty and Roberts getting them back for Pompey. But then the late winner from Hartley sending Argyle to Wembley, and they will meet either Wimbledon or Accrington Stanley. Wimbledon also got a last-minute winner yesterday evening through Beer. Oh, is it Beer or Bear? It's pronounced. I think it's Beer. But they got the last-minute winner at Wimbledon. So Argyle, feel free to revel in Pompey's loss, if you will. And who do you see them playing in the final? Because that one is actually tight between Accrington and Wimbledon.
Yeah, I mean the League Two playoffs I think are the tightest ones, because I just really have no idea. If I'm going to have to pin my colours to the mast, I'm going to say Plymouth to go up. I think they've been the best unit in that playoff situation, and they've been such a good team in League Two for a good few seasons now. It kind of feels like their time's now. The 2-2 the other day between Portsmouth and Plymouth was a fantastic way to start the playoffs. I'm in Portsmouth for university, as I'm sure I've mentioned on this pod before. So I was just opening the window just every now and again, because it's sweltering in Pompey at the moment. So I was opening the window, and you could just hear the fans singing and chanting and going at it. It's a fantastic atmosphere at Fratton Park. It always has been. But they had plenty of reason to be annoyed as well, because Jamil Matt, for as good as he was in that game, did throw a bit of a naughty headbutt, which the referee clearly looked at and decided wasn't serious enough. No retrospective action. The FA said there wasn't enough in it to make a call. So he stayed on the pitch, ended up getting 2 goals. His second goal, by the way, if you haven't seen the goals from that game, is a brilliant piece of individual skill, but you cannot look past how bad the Pompey defending is for that one. It's an overhead kick, literally by the post. It's incredible how he gets in from the angle he does, but the defending is woeful. As someone that has lived in Portsmouth for 3 years, that is a Southampton fan, that has gone to university with lecturers that are Pompey fans, for all the crap I have gotten in the 3 years that I have been here, it doesn't make me smug, because I'm not an ardent Pompey hater, but there is a certain degree of satisfaction to know that of all the crap I've taken in the past 3 years, from the fact that I wear my Southampton shirt every single time Southampton play in this city, but I have to do my zipper up if I go past my kitchen window in case I catch eyes with my neighbour. If I do and they see the red and white stripes, I have to mouth the words Stoke or Sunderland to them. That's my life in Portsmouth. It's kind of satisfying to see them go down the way they did. But at the same time, they have been here for a very long time. They're a big club. They don't deserve to be in League Two for too much longer. It needs to be said, of course, that they were gracious in defeat and went to speak to the Plymouth team after the end of the game and said congratulations or whatever. But the manager and the players refused to do any post-match interviews, and they've come home very, very grumpy, and they don't want to talk to anyone. They're going to shut the curtains and just sit indoors and think for the next few weeks. So I'll be fascinated to see how they do next season, because Portsmouth fans were adamant they were going to walk this league this season, and it turned against them. So full credit to Plymouth. Fantastic game across both legs, really. And for me, they're now the favourites for it. The Wimbledon game, I saw the first half of it and then caught about half an hour of it because Eurovision was on, and I love myself some Eurovision. So I kind of skipped over it, but it was a really, really dull, crap game, which I wasn't expecting much more from, considering the size of the two teams. It's just kind of a shame to see Accrington lose that game, and I don't know how I feel about them in the return leg on Wednesday. It would be nice to see them win it and get to go to Wembley, but I just can't see past Plymouth at the moment. You know, they just seem to be in such a better position than any other team in that playoff situation. So it's a strange one, League Two. But I think with Portsmouth now gone, it's probably your Argyle.
Yes, yeah, and I should say at this point, I'll hold my hands up. I'm not an Argyle fan. It's the local area that I keep an eye on the results, and I know a lot of people that play in my Sunday League team are Argyle fans. A lot of them were there today, actually. One of them's a groundsman, and they will take a lot of Janners up to Wembley for the final. They expect Wembley to be full. I think when they went to the Emirates, they took 30,000. To the Emirates, so expect there to be a lot of the Green Army up there. Nice to see Neil Warnock, and I think it was his daughter in the crowd today. At the ground, I know he's got he still lives down here. I think he still lives in Cornwall, and he's got a real affinity and love for Argyle, and did a lot for them in the sort of the 90s. So yeah, nice. And Derek Adams done a hell of a job. Job. Taking on the legend or the legacy left behind by former Southampton manager Paul Sturrock, of course, who also did a good job. At the time.
Legend for you, not so much for us, but
no, absolutely. Do forgive the sound effects. That's anyone that's interesting. That's a goal for Alianza Lima reserves. It doesn't get more hipster than that, boys and girls. The benefits of live podding. The final game I want to just touch on briefly is the National League. Yes, such things exist, boys and girls. Outside of League Two, Grimsby. And this is quite a story, isn't it? Because they are officially back as a Football League club, having sort of dropped off the face of the planet. So did you want to have just a couple of words on Grimsby's return?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this last week. I've got a real soft spot for Grimsby because the first time I picked up a Football Manager game, which was 2008, I picked Grimsby in League Two. And for some reason, Brett Ormerod was in the Blackpool or Preston reserves, and you could buy him for Grimsby, and we absolutely smashed it. So I've got a great feeling for Grimsby, and it seems like they every single season get so near, and they've never been good enough to go up automatically because the League Two teams come down with a mindset of, oh my God, we have to get out of here as quickly as possible. So they keep everyone and just blast their way through the league. So they were never good enough to go up automatically, but they always just seem to miss out. There's so many Wembley heartbreaks and playoff problems they've had over the past few years. So it's so nice to see Grimsby come back up, and I am so looking forward to seeing them back in League Two.
It will be nice, as you say. Certain clubs, you just have an affinity for them being around, and good luck to them. And it's always nice to hear of a club that comes back after a season or seasons in the wilderness, or Phoenix clubs that rise again. So good to see. Nice to see it. Nice to see it indeed. Okay, right. Well, I can't think of anything else that we haven't covered. We've gone through lots as usual this week. Anything you want to? Because obviously this is the last sort of main English breakfast pod of the season. We are hoping to maybe do a little bit about the playoff winners, and maybe just have a quick natter, and we might even do a championship review pod maybe at the end of the season if we get time. But anything you want to particularly mention or highlight, or anything that really stands out to you from the seasons of English football that we've just had, or indeed anything you want to look ahead to for next season?
It's a tough one. I fell in love with football because of the stories it tells, and that's the reason I love lower league football, and especially the Championship. And there have been so many stories that came from this season. If you think of Leicester, and then you think of West Ham, and you think of Newcastle and Aston Villa. You go down to the Championship and you look at teams like Bolton, who thankfully are still going to be around next season. Charlton, Rotherham. You keep going down the leagues and there's more and more stories. It would be difficult to pick out one to highlight or to bring to anyone's attention. The one thing I would say is that if you have ever been 50-50 about the Championship, or if it's ever been one of those leagues where you thought, no, I don't really need to worry about that until the playoffs, next year's Championship is going to be incredible. There's going to be a lot of stories in that. And, like I said earlier, if Rafa Benitez is down there, if he's going to stay, that is blockbuster. The Championship is moving up in the world next year. And I, for one, cannot wait for the Championship season to start again.
Will be exciting, and as you say, with the likes of Villa and Newcastle down there, it could be very, very interesting. And of course, who knows who could be going up into the Premier League? I'm actually quite excited by the possibility of Sheffield Wednesday or Brighton potentially being in the Premier League. I hope. But we shall see. There's a lot to come, and nicely transition, because as we leave you tonight, I do want to just give a quick plug. Myself and Simon Collins, who's a friend of the pod, and we've done an interview previously. He's a sports writer, sports journalist, works in sports media at the moment. He's covered the amazing story of Leicester City all season. In fact, he was down at your ground today, Ross.
So I hear.
Down at St Mary's. So he's covered the Leicester story all throughout the season. He was given apparently the short straw of covering Leicester all season, and my did he get the long straw in the end. But myself and Simon sat down the other night. We recorded a Leicester City special, just going through some of the highlights of their season and key moments, etc., which we will be putting out at some point in. I think we're due to put it out next midweek, once it's been edited and whatnot. So do have a look out for that. It'll be on our website and all the usual feeds, iTunes and YouTube, etc. So do have a listen out for that. And even if you're a fan of of any other team, I think you'll enjoy it. It's quite a story, and the fact that it could never be done or may never be done again, it's quite interesting to have that as a bit of a keepsake of a really truly monumentous achievement. But yes, that is it for us. Ross, I think it's been quite a fun experiment. We, as our listeners will remember, we started out as a podcast for all 5 leagues, and it just got too long and it was too much. So we broke into 2, and we've taken this English breakfast concept on its own, and I think it's been quite fun, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think this pod has developed its own nice little brand within the Football Hipsters umbrella. So I'm very proud to have been a part of it for the past 6 months. Fingers crossed, my internet will still be fine when I move back to Southampton in a couple of days' time. So hopefully I'll still be able to come back if I'm wanted next season. But
yes.
It's been a fantastic little experiment, I think, hasn't it?
Good, absolutely. Yeah, we are very happy to have you, and there will always be a seat for you next season, and we'll continue to do excellent work. And I'm sure Danny will be back as well. And also there's rumours, Ross, you might be popping up over the summer for our Euros specials as well.
You never know. You never know.
Time. So mainly because you're the only bugger that actually follows England.
Someone's got to, yeah.
Someone's got to. So we'll no doubt speak over the summer. But that is it for this week's and indeed this season's Football Hipsters English Breakfast. As I say, do keep it tuned to us. There's still plenty of content still between now and the end of the season, and indeed over the Euros. So keep yourself tuned into our forums, and keep your beard strong and your glasses trendy. Thank you very much to Ross as usual, and we shall return with our final regular pod of the season tomorrow, and we will speak to you all very soon.
It's Bergkamp. That's magnificent. Mark Vivian Foet, Sinclair's cross over Cunningham. Di Canio. Oh, I do not believe that. That is sensational.
Letizia. He's going for goal again. Oh! Only Matthew Letizia can score goals like that.
Collymore closing in.